Okay, we will now look at question number 2. This is usually about an achievement, a possession, a past event, where you went on vacation. It's something to do with the time in the past. Could be present, your usual hobbies, your usual activities. Could be in terms of the future. What do you want to do in 10 years? What would you envision life to be in the next decade? And so on. This could be any range of topics, but it's always going to talk about a certain specific topic and you need to elaborate on that. Now, one thing I'd like you to see here is how big this is. This is a very long question. Preparation time is only 30 seconds. Let's try to read it. So it says, talk about your biggest achievement. You can mention something that happened in school, at work, or even something within your family that you did and were really proud of. What was it? And why did you feel it was a monumental achievement? So just by reading it, it took me about 15 seconds or more maybe, and that leaves me with very little time to actually prepare. Here's what you need to do. Just read the first sentence every time you see this question. So the first sentence here says, talk about your biggest achievement. I just need to know this. And do I need to really look at all of this? You can talk about this, you can talk about that. No, it never really gives you any idea. And it just wastes time because obviously I know I can talk about this, that, or the other. I will think of my biggest achievement just from the first sentence, and that could be anything in the past. Now, the last sentence is usually the same sentence over and over again with different words. So it says, what was it? And why did you feel it was a monumental achievement? Sometimes it says, what were your feelings associated with it? Why was this important? And it's always the same thing. So it basically asks you why it was important, what was so great about it. And it's very easy to explain that and cover that every time once we have a look at our template here in a second. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about these sentences. They're a waste of time. All you got to worry about is the first sentence, and then you want to use the template and make sure you're using the right words and phrases. You will automatically be able to answer the question. Let's have a look at the template for speaking part 2. Considering my, this is how you want to start. And here you could use personal experience, history, qualifications, past events. Again, it could be a number of things. In this case, it is your achievement. So I'm going to say, considering my biggest achievement in life, it was whatever. And this is where you start right away with the great first impression because you are using the word considering. That is going to make a complex sentence right at the start. And again, the use of these templates is it helps you to use the advanced vocab words and phrases and range so you don't have to think about it in your content, which you will have to create based on this question where you have your achievement, so you would define it. Now, when you start defining it, the first thing you mention, you want to use words like primarily, mainly, and you can see these are different from the words we have in speaking task 1 on purpose. All templates are organized in a way where they stand out from each other and you have a good range. So here you're gonna talk about the first thing, primarily the aspect of the achievement that is very profound was talk about that. We'll see an answer, so you'll see how to use this, but this is also a way to start with a complex sentence again. The aspect of this, whatever this thing is, your main topic, is, and then you continue. I know it's confusing. We'll look at the answer to clarify. You want to put one point here with this primarily sentence. The next sentence will be considering or concerning. Now, because you have used considering, it's better to say concerning just to keep a variety. And here you want to do 1 to 2 points, and that's all. Okay, so you use 1 point here, and let's say 1 point here. That's a total of 2 points, or a total of 3 points if you say 2 points later on. That is all you need, and this is what you need to understand. This question is 60 seconds long. A lot of you think the more you talk, the more points you have, the more marks you will get. It is not like that. If you have 10 quantity points that are not well defined, and you have another speaking where you have 2 points, quality points, well defined, you will score much better in the 2 or 3 points that are more defined. Quality always matters over quantity. So you want to have a short answer, good points, good quality points, and 2 to 3 are more than enough. So in this case, you would use a complex sentence like concerning the targets I had in terms of academic success. I was able to score a distinction when I was in college, and that would be your sentence here. Now you want to finish off with something like clearly or undoubtedly if you're using those one-worded connectors. And again, both of them have le's in them, so they're great choices for connectors because they're adverbs. They give you a good range. You could also say whatever is smoother on your tongue. If you want to say it is evident that, you can use that too. So you could talk about, for example, undoubtedly it was a very important achievement for me because my family was relying on me to get the scholarship. Or it is evident that these days financial circumstances are tough, hence I needed to get the scholarship and I got it. That's why this achievement stood out for me. So when you say this sentence, you automatically answer the last question. What was it and why did you feel? Basically, the sentence that asks you, why is it important? It's always the same sentence. And once you finish off with this, not only does it help you answer the question of why it was important, it also wraps up the whole idea nicely. At the end, you just conclude with this final statement. Hey, look, this is why this whole thing was really remarkable for me. Now let's have a look at the sample answer to see how the template fits. The same question about the biggest achievement. Here's the answer. Considering my personal experiences, my biggest achievement was organizing a community fundraiser during my final year of university. This is where you introduce the topic. You basically rephrase the question, mention the aspect of the biggest achievement, and give a little bit more detail. Fundraiser during my final year of university. So now you have completed the introduction. Now we understand the picture, the setting. That's the first sentence. Now we're going to go with the next template point, which is going to be your point number 1 with primarily. Point number 2 is going to be concerning, just 2 points here. You could also do 3 max. Undoubtedly will be the last sentence that gives an overview of how important this was or what was the result of all of this. So it says primarily the aspect of exceeding our $15,000 goal by raising $20,000 stands out since this was the least expected outcome given our low-income neighborhood. Okay, so again, reasoning behind the points. Why was it unexpected? Because our neighborhood is low income. Concerning the other challenge of limited time. So guys, that's all you need to do for concerning or complex sentences. Brief intro. So concerning this challenge, and then this is the result. I had to pretty much work overtime, going door to door, collecting these funds. Honestly, it was not the most ideal experience. It was nerve-wracking. Very good phrasing there. So you're expressing how this whole event was. However, good connector, moving on to the solution. By putting in more time, I was able to raise the needed funds. Good. So this whole point is about the time problem. And the first point was about how I raised the money given that my income or neighborhood was low income. Last one, undoubtedly. And that's a good change to the connectors. As you can see, this is a li this time. This experience taught me how to really step out of my comfort zone and push myself to the limits. It was a lesson in perseverance and overcoming seemingly impossible obstacles. So you see here, you don't need a concluding sentence. If you want, you could say therefore overall, but when you say undoubtedly and you finish off with the whole importance and what this taught me and my key takeaways with this event or experience, you wrap it up automatically. So you don't need to spend extra time or say more things to have a concluding sentence, although you can use that if you need to. So here it is, again, very good wordings, and things like you could say overcoming difficult things, but if you say seemingly impossible obstacles, phrasing wise is way better, way more advanced. Okay, the next question type is a picture question, and this is where you will get any ordinary picture with things happening, people having different expressions. The question says, describe what is happening in the picture below. The person you are with cannot see the picture. Many things I want to point out here. One is you have to describe not only what is happening, like the actions, for example, the person talking, people listening, but also you have to make sure, please, I beg you, you have to give their expressions. How are they feeling? I mean, this lady looks very assertive with her hand gestures. This lady on the bottom right hand side seems a little frustrated or probably tired. What is the reaction of the people here? And so on. You want to give those adjectives and adverbs. That is very important because most of you miss it, and most of you miss the task response description, tone, and range of vocabulary marked because of that. Okay, and you want to again point out as many things as you can in the picture, but you might not be able to do all of it. So make sure you at least focus on the main players in the game. This lady you cannot ignore, she is the main person. And then pick a few over here. For example, I could look at her, I could look at this guy. In this picture, I would say those are the main characters. I would focus on them first, and you can decide who your main characters are. Usually it's just a matter of judgment. And you want to prioritize them because time is limited. So you give priority to, okay, these are my 3 to 4 points I will get in no matter what. And if I have extra time, maybe I can talk about this guy in the background. Maybe I can talk about this group of 3 people talking with each other. They look like young guys. Probably they're the junior students or first year students and so on. Okay, let's have a look at the template. And this is where the template is much more important than in other places because most of you don't have a structure for this. Most of you have this lady is doing this guy is doing this lady is doing this, but it needs to have more range, more descriptions, more depth. You want to start with the picture clearly portrays or the picture clearly illustrates. Both are good words, advanced words. You define the picture briefly. Your next point where you define something else is going to start with the word moreover, good connector here. Then you have to use this. Please use this, okay? The photograph emphasizes. When you do this, you will force yourself to not only talk about the verbs, but expressions or the overall view of the picture. Is it chaotic? Is it an academic setting? Or what's the reaction of people? And when you focus on the emphasis, what is this picture focused on mainly? It'll help bring out those words and phrases. And we'll see that in our sample answer. You could also talk about things like in the foreground and in the background. So I'll show you the template in a sec, but just so you know, foreground is this part right here towards the bottom or towards the front that you can see. Background is background, in the back. Okay, so very useful words for CELPIP. And in CELPIP webinars, they always mention foreground, background is for some reason their favorite word choices. So make sure to use those in your speaking part 3. So you would say the photograph emphasizes this in the foreground. So whatever is happening there in the foreground, that is being emphasized while also showcasing the something in the background. So while whatever is happening in the background, we'll check that answer and figure that out. But this sentence formulation is amazing. You will have your range here when you talk about the emphasis. You will use good words and phrases, probably adjectives and adverbs. And then when you say foreground while also showcasing, you're making a complex sentence. You will have good marks because you are using multiple clauses in this sentence. Now you can finish off with to conclude, and for these kinds of answers, it's good to use, it's appropriate, unlike when you're talking to friends or family, because this is where you're basically giving a description. Or you could also say in essence, and wrap up the whole idea of the picture. So this is where I'm going to show you the answer, and I'm also going to show you the picture. Oh, it's right there, perfect. So here we can look back and forth at the picture and the statements and see how we have to use the template. Okay, the picture clearly portrays a woman giving a presentation in what seems to be. These are great phrases to use, in what seems to be, or you could also say things like, it can be seen, it can be observed. They are just different phrasing than saying, I can see this. Seems to be a museum or a gallery setting. And this is where you have now basically defined the whole picture, right? That's what you want to attempt to do in the first sentence. You could also talk about the adjectives, like the picture seems like it's in an academic setting, or it's, if it is, you could use words like it's chaotic, it is, there's lots happening, or it is a picture full of people with joy and happiness, depending on the picture. Now you start with a little description. She is standing. Now remember, moreover is the next thing in the template, right? But before you say moreover, you gotta explain 1 or 2 points so that you can use moreover as an addition for the next point you're gonna say. So it says, she's standing confidently. look at that expression, confidently. Make sure to give expressions of people in front of a group of people, gesturing with her hands. So that's your verb. So in this sentence, you got her confidently, you got her feeling, her expression, and the verb, which is awesome. Likely to explain or emphasize key points. Okay. Moreover, that's the next point, the audience appears engaged, with some seated while others stand, attentively listening to her. So how? Attentively. Again, make sure you do that. I am fully confident you will obviously talk about the verbs, the actions. Like they're sitting and standing, I think you will say the stuff. But will you say the words engaged, attentively listening to her? Will you say confidently? I doubt it. And I doubt it because I see speaking feedbacks every day. So make sure you include those, and that's why I'm really pushing on that more. Now, here is where that fancy phrasing comes along. The photograph emphasizes the presenter in the foreground. So in the foreground, that's who we see, while also showcasing the exhibit displays and informational posters in the background. That's the background thing, the things you can see in the background right there. That's that. Then, and again, by the way, this sentence is something you want to work on, practice with. After a few tries, you will be able to master it. The foreground emphasizes this, or the photograph emphasizes this in the foreground, while this stuff can be seen in the background. Okay? The setting appears casual yet organized. If you can use phrasing like this, casual yet organized, it would be amazing. It's very good phrasing. Fostering, advanced word, fostering or creating an interactive learning environment. And then you wrap up the whole idea by saying, in essence, the image highlights a moment of education and connection. So you can see it is to be animated. You have to color the picture with the adjectives, definition of the environment, the qualities of people and the scene, not just the verbs. All right? And that's with the use of our template. Now, in the next question, after this one, you get the same picture. And here you are now asked to talk about what you think happens next in the picture. So first of all, here you want to assume what's going to happen in the next 15 minutes. I mentioned this because I have seen students talk about what's going to happen the next day, or what's going to happen in the future, really in the future. So no, it's next would imply next 15 minutes or so. You also want to make reasonable assumptions. For example, you don't want to say that there's going to be a flood and it's going to flood the whole classroom because the weather is going to go bad. I have heard these examples, so it's important for me to mention. Make sure it's reasonable. And within reason, whatever you say doesn't matter. You could talk about how this teacher will probably be stopped by this student because she feels the teacher is not engaging enough, and that's within reason. And you can make any assumptions. Any content you want to put within reason is okay. The actual content does not matter. How you say it matters a lot. So let's have a look at the template for this one. And here's your template for speaking part 4. In the near future, the first sentence, you directly get to the point and you start talking about the first prediction. You elaborate and expand on that. Reason we do that here is, again, many people struggle to finish this part 4, and part 3 within time. So you want to get to the point right away here, and you got to make at least 2 to 3 predictions. So after you say that, you would then use likewise to start your next point. It is very similar to how we used moreover in speaking 3. And that was after we said a few things initially. Moreover was our lead into the next point. Likewise is your lead in to the point, second point here. And guys, the thing with likewise is it doesn't mean that you have to have the exact same points before likewise and after likewise, because the word is likewise, like similarly. So you might think it has to be the same point. It doesn't have to be. It could be the same point that you would have used if you used a connector like furthermore, moreover, or also. Likewise is just a connector, just a conjunction. The only place where it really becomes wrong is obviously if you had contradictory points and you are supposed to use however. Instead of that, you use likewise, obviously, that would be wrong. But in the whole speaking part 4, we're just predicting. So likewise will be 100% appropriate. You use that, add your next point. Now, towards the end, towards your final points, you want to use phrases like these. It's reasonable to anticipate that, or it is also likely to foresee that. Both of them are equally good. They have good words like foresee and anticipate. Reasonable is a good word here, good addition. And here likely is an adverb, which is also a good addition. So both of them are good. You can pick any that flow better on your tongue. Now, when you see contractions here, guys, it's and it's. We cannot use contractions in writing. You will lose marks if you do that in writing, except a few exceptions, like if you are using an informal email and you're saying let's talk soon, that's okay. You're not going to say let us talk soon, right? So there are exceptions, but if you're in doubt, just avoid it in writing. In speaking, it's perfectly fine. In fact, you are supposed to be as natural as possible, so you are supposed to use contractions if it's natural. If not, you don't have to. Also, for emphasis, remember it always differentiates. For example, if you are saying I can't talk to you right now, that's okay. But if you have to emphasize the negativity, like I cannot speak on this topic, it's inappropriate, then you would say cannot separately, like a bigger word, not two words, but you would avoid the contraction there. So it really depends on how you want to emphasize what you're trying to emphasize. All right, so that's a little bit about emphasis. And now let's talk about the tone here. Once again, the templates are built to force you to get things done right. This is passive voice, and I don't see much of this in speaking or writing. So this is going to kind of force you to use your active voices in combination with passive voice, which is why it's really important you follow these templates or something similar. Gives you a very good range. Let's have a look at the answer for this one. What do you think will happen next in the picture? The template is again highlighted in bold. It starts with in the near future. It's likely that the women, now again likely or it may happen, possibly may happen, remember, again you see those words may, will eventually move. Again, it's a prediction. We're not really saying that this will certainly happen. So you want to keep the same tone of prediction. It's likely that the woman will continue explaining the details of the exhibit to the group. So that's my first point. Right away, prediction was probably going to happen. And now explain this more. Everything you say has to be explained. Let me repeat that. Everything you say or write in CELPIP, writing and speaking, has to be explained. You can't just say this and move on to the next point. After this, if you said likewise, I would be extremely mad at you. You have to explain everything. And that's what these answers do really well. She might elaborate on the history or significance of the information displayed on the walls. Okay, now I've explained that. Now I can move on to my next prediction. And I gotta get 2 to 3 points in. So this is gonna be my next point. Likewise, the audience possibly may start asking questions to engage further with the presenter, showing their interest in the topic. Some attendees may take notes or capture pictures of the exhibit for reference. You can see these points are pretty boring, right? There's nothing phenomenal happening, like this person is gonna start screaming at the teacher or anything like that. That's okay. If you want this person to scream at the teacher, you can say that too. Content doesn't matter. As long as it's within reason, within the next 15 minutes, it is predicting, but the way you say it matters a whole lot. Now, it's reasonable to anticipate that, and now we're finally giving our final prediction, but also moving towards the end. The group will eventually, so it's again in the future, move to another part of the exhibit where the presenter will discuss a new section or topic, continuing the guided tour. So they're at one part of the exhibit, they'll probably move to the other side of the room, and that's where the guided tour will continue, which is very likely to happen in a guided tour like this. So that's it. In terms of content, you can see it's not very exciting. Doesn't have to be. It just needs to be defined well using the templates, 2 to 3 points. Here we had a total of 3 points, 1, 2, 3, 3 paragraphs, and organized nicely with the use of these words. Okay. That's it for the prediction question. We will now move on to perhaps the hardest question in CELPIP speaking, and that is CELPIP speaking part 5, comparison and persuasion question.